Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, guys? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show. Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today. Today, our badass guest is Jason Cabell, aka Cabell. He served 20 years as a Navy SEAL, retiring as a senior chief. He co-founded 5326 Productions in 2013 in Santa Monica, California. You can catch Cabell on IG, and to take a deeper dive, go check out his IMDb. Fast note, in 2016, Jason wrote, directed, and won Best Actor for his performance in Smoke-Filled Lungs. The movie also won Best Picture at the Milan Filmmakers Film Festival. In 2019, Jason wrote and directed the feature film Running with the Devil, starring Nic Cage, Laurence Fishburne, and other badass cast members. Brother, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Dude, it's amazing, man. I'm always so surprised, and every time I do one of these, I feel like I'm not doing enough. You did 20 years in the service, which I always say is 20 years in the SEAL teams is no easy feat. That is a long, long road, which is awesome. And I congratulate you on making it all the way to the very end. And then you get out and you just create a whole new career for yourself, and you explode on that. Did you always know you wanted to get into the filmmaking business? Or is this something that came post-service?
Well, so right about the 10-year mark, I used to play golf with this captain at North Island, NAS North Island. And it was right before 9/11. And, I had been talking to some people in Hollywood, and, I said, hey, I want to go up there. And he's like, do your next 10 years. It's going to go quick. And it's probably better if you do that, and that, retirement money makes things a lot easier and everything. And then 9/11 happened, and I didn't have a choice. So I was looking over the fence in about 2000. I hit the 10-year mark in the teams. And, we did some stuff in those, from 91 to 9/11, but nothing like what happened after, September 11th. But that kind of I didn't have a choice. And then those last 10 years just went poof. And I think the life experience and everything else that happened, it just one thing led to another, and it just seemed like I was in the right place at the right time. When I got out and I started meeting the right people, and it just kept going. And I'm like, wow, I guess this is how it's supposed to be. And now that I've looked back on the last, 10 years or 12 years, I'm like, wow, that was kind of crazy,
That's crazy, man. It's interesting you say that. Let's talk about the idea of post 9/11. You did a few things. Those few things are like the real deal Navy SEAL stuff. And that's what's cool, because I went through BUDS in 2003, and we were just at war now. So guys you were deploying for the first time at SEAL Team 7.
Right. Yeah, was our 03-04, and we, somebody called me, Jason Torrey called me, we were talking, he goes, that was 20 years ago. And I was like, over 12. I was like, wait, what? And you did, but that's how much time has passed now, man. So you went through BUDS 21 years ago, but we all still look pretty good, man. We all still,
I appreciate that. It's funny you say JT. So when I got blown up in 2005, JT gave me the nickname Birdman.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's interesting. I look at, obviously I've watched a ton of movies because we do that on deployment. It keeps by the time. But I've also I'm always interested in film, just from the creative side. And I have no business being in Hollywood because I'm not creative. That's just not my jam. But to have that kind of creativity, it's a whole different ball game. And a lot of people don't know what really goes into filmmaking, to writing, what it even really means. So can you walk us through like your start in that scene and what you had to do? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, it is show business. And if you neglect the business side, you're going to get crushed. So, what I did is, for a while, when I decided I wanted to do it, I started going to all the film festivals in the markets, like the American Film Market, Toronto. There's a ton of them. And people go from market to market, these distributors and foreign sales companies, and there's 43 foreign markets, and then there's the domestic market. So if you look at Toronto or Cannes, and everyone sees Cannes and goes, oh my, it's this crazy red carpet and premieres, and well, they rent out entire hotels and they turn them into offices. Like at the American film market this year is going to be in Vegas, which is going to be interesting because it's usually in Santa Monica and they moved it to Vegas. And I'm like, what's that going to look like? But besides all the premieres and the sexy red carpet stuff, there are people like the stock market buying and selling movies. They're like, oh, you got a Christmas dog movie? And we, and then you're going, okay, we have these, 43 foreign markets. We can pre-sell some of these markets and hold back others and make a domestic deal. So I learned that side first for a few years. And then this guy asked me to help him produce this movie, and it never got released, but I learned a bunch about all, but I kept looking at these scripts going, these are terrible. Like, I know I can do better. And excuse me, I was doing acting classes and other stuff at the time because I was, doing reality show pilots. And over Christmas 2013, I wrote 2 scripts and they both ended up getting made into movies. And then I ended up with a literary agent and a directing agent, all these agents and managers and lawyers. And then I got in the Writers Guild. I got hired. A lot of people don't know. They go, oh yeah, if you do enough work, you can get into those guilds. It doesn't work that way. The Writers Guild, you have to be hired to either write a TV show or someone goes, pitch me an idea. And a WGA signatory company, and there can't be any nepotism. Like, you can't start a company and hire your wife to write a script and go, you're in the guild now. So they're really protected and it's hard to get in. But a guy hired me, said, I saw what you did, and I wrote a movie, and that movie never got made, but I got credits for, and I'm, hopefully it will someday, but I got credits, to be in the Writers Guild. And then I got paid to write a couple other things. And I'm under contract right now for 2 other scripts that are both going to get made. I'm directing one and another director is going to direct the other one. So it's a process to get in. And then same with the Directors Guild. And same, I've been in SAG since 2013, which is kind of fun because, I learned what it feels like to be in front of the camera, to be better behind the camera. And, so it's a process to get into those. A lot of people don't know, and they go, oh yeah, anyone can write a script. Anyone could, but there's the coffee shops are full of writers from coast to coast, which is great. But until you sell something and then get into the guild or get get a literary agent or someone pimping you a little bit. So I have a motion picture, television, a motion picture director agent, television director agent, and it's that compartmentalized. So, at first I got a little pissed and I'm like, wait, how much money are they taking? Like as soon as contract, you lose 10% for the agent, 10% for your manager, 5% for your lawyer right off the top. And then you got to get in with the taxes. So some of these potential big paychecks, when you're like, what am I really netting out of this?
Yeah. Who's working for who here?
And then it can take years to get something made. So you look back and you get this big paycheck and you're like, well, that took 4 years. I could have worked at Wendy's and made more money. Like I could have, worked at Home Depot or something. So, but you get these big paychecks and you can't just go buy a Porsche. You got to go, okay, that might be the next, you buy a house or you buy, so, but it's a good business. It's rough, but and then you work in silence for years. Like I have these 2 big projects, and I think we're going to start shooting. We're on schedule. I'm in the second draft of the script, and we're getting to the end. And I think we're going to wrap that up by November, and then they'll go into casting, and we'll shoot it in the spring. And that's a true story about these corrupt cops in Texas. And I actually had to go to Fort Dix Federal Pen to go interview this guy for a week. It was so I spent a week in federal prison interview, and they wouldn't even let me bring a tube of chapstick in there. So I had to use all my Kim's game and team guy brain.
Oh my gosh.
For like 8 hours. and then and record it and write stuff down to try to remember everything he said from the day, So it was interesting, but that I think that's going to be a pretty cool project.
That's
Um,
when
but
is that? When is that coming?
well, we're going to shoot it in the spring of 25, but then that's the other thing. We'll finish by summer, and then you got to throw in 4 to 6 months of post-production. So by Christmas 25, we should be done with it. But then depending on the release time, when you get with the distributors, they may go, oh, let's hold this movie till Christmas 26, or it's a Chris or Thanksgiving. So that, and that happened with Running with the Devil. We finished and they held it for 7 months, and it released in September of 20, I think. So, and you're like, but that's out of your control at that point.
That makes it tough though, right? Because you've got actors that have schedules that, once it's done, they're moving on to other things. And so having to bring them back for premieres or whatnot.
Right. And that's why you put it in the contract that they have to. That's why a lot of times they look so different by the time, because it could be 2 years since you shot that by the time it comes out. So that, I mean, it is a slow burn, man. And it is a marathon. It's an ultra marathon wrapped in a triathlon. It's not a sprint.
Were you a sniper? Were you a sniper in the teams?
No.
You are now.
Right? No, the patience and that's it. And you get into these contracts and you're like, and people still, like, are you still doing that? I'm like, yeah, it takes like 3 or 4 years to get a movie made. And if you look back on some of the careers, and I'm not comparing myself to like Tarantino or anybody else. Yeah, but it's a total slow burn, and it takes forever and ever to get something made. So, and if you look back, like Tarantino's career, he's only made like 10 movies since the early 90s, so.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. What do you think's the hardest? You're a director, you're a writer, you act. Because I obviously would not doing any of that. I would have my own ideas as to what would be hard to me. What is the hardest for you?
Well, I mean, I think each process, it changes. The writing takes a long time to bring something to life, and writing is rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And then it's the different pressures. I think the funnest part is directing, though, when you get to that point, because you can, you're sitting there, and I've had some surreal moments where, Laurence Fishburne sitting there talking to Nic Cage, and you're like, I wrote that, and they're saying what I wrote, and so the acting stuff is, I haven't done much of that. When I directed the SEAL Team show in Jordan, they needed a character, and since I was an American actor and I had been in SAG, they paid me to do that. So memorizing the lines and all that stuff, and then being a believable character is a difficult thing. But each thing has its own pitfalls, I guess, or difficulty. The writing takes forever, and sometimes you're just like, man, are we ever going to get this right? And then getting into the next phases of production, and the casting can be like, you wonder if it's ever going to happen, because you're never going to get you're going to put out offers and you're going to get a lot of rejections, and that's hard to swallow. But then you look back and say, oh wow, that cast ended up perfect. I couldn't see it any other way. But you're going to get people that say no for scheduling reasons, or they don't like the project, or whatever it is, so yeah, I think that each one has its own things. And as I'm writing right now, it's difficult, and it's tedious, and it's never ending, but I can't wait to get it done, to get to the, the next phase. The directing part, when you're on set making, it's the funnest. Post-production is also like, sitting in a dark room for months, So,
oh my gosh. So
part of the process, and I know some really good people I've worked with in post-production, and, so they make it as fun as possible, I guess.
that's crazy. You put all this effort, because you do everything. So you put all this effort into creating it, and then you put all this effort into making it. And then after that, the editing side of it to releasing it. So this is a huge, huge process altogether. So when you get it out there, it must feel like you just summited Mount Everest.
No, for sure. And that's it. Usually, yeah, you take a little vacation or something. I mean, you're bringing this thing to life, and it's usually a couple years minimum by the time you get it out there for sure. So,
You mean you don't just jump right into the next project with no break?
well, sometimes, I mean, it depends if you're, lucky. The last few years have been interesting because, my movie came out and I had two or three pretty good offers, and then COVID hit. So
Yeah.
nobody worked for 18 months in Hollywood, give or take. And then that got going, and I did the Seal show, and my episode came out, and I got a bunch of offers, and to what the stuff I'm currently working on right now. And then there was a strike last year. Basically, from about the middle of April, everyone went, "Oop, I'll stop," until November. But the cycles in Hollywood, man, nobody works, from November to like January, everybody just disappears. Like the week before Thanksgiving till like the second week of January, nothing gets done. So nobody, for the most part, worked last year either. And then as soon as the strike was over in early 2024, that's when things really picked up again. And I got those couple contracts to write, and, here we are.
Man, yeah, I mean, it's just like every other type of news out there, right? You hear about the strike. I remember seeing your post. It was like, and there's a strike. I think it was as simple as that. And you move on. People move on though, and they don't think about how long this could last, how much really went into it. And it's horrible, man. Is there a typical genre that you focus on when you're
Well,
in this?
it's funny you say that. I mean, it's people silo you in Hollywood, and of course, it's like, oh, you're a team guy, action, 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 action. And I could do helicopter chases and gunfights in my sleep, like any team guy could. But it's funny you say that, because I like the dramatic stuff, and you have to fight to get siloed in Hollywood, and that's like I really like. How some people have crossed over. Like the guy that did the Hangover movies is doing the Joker now. And that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago in Hollywood, because they're like, oh, you're making comedies. You could never do anything dramatic. Or so there is a dramatic project that I am looking at right now. And I was on the phone about it not too long before we started here. And I would love, I mean, it's a total departure. I don't know that I would ever do a rom-com, or, like, I just don't know that. But there are some great stories, and, they look at me and go, oh yeah, you should be doing action thriller stuff. And I mean, great. There's tons of those cop movies and I would never turn anything down like that. But I like dramatic stuff, and there's some good movies, and I think we need to get back to really good stories that are out there, but they're so risk averse that if it's not Spider-Man 97, it's probably not going to get made, And
Yeah.
I'm not in the Spider-Man movies or any of those, but there's some great stories out there that need to be told, and it's getting harder and harder to get them made.
I'm pretty sure that what I just heard is that the only thing that will come out of this show is that you want to make a Hallmark movie. So
Yeah, well, I have my friend does those, and the person I worked with on the Shockwave movie, which was for Sci-Fi Channel, she at Ninth House Films, she makes all those Hallmark and Lifetime movies. She makes like 6 of them a year. She makes a heck of a living, and we talk all the time. And there's a market for those, man, and they have. It's an interesting filmmaking. They make some of those movies in like 12 to 15 days. They crank them out. So no, that's a cool market though, honestly. So
it's interesting. I had to dive in once and actually watch an episode because my mom's super into it. And seems like a lot of actresses who get into that genre stay in that genre, stay within that. It's interesting. So I see a lot of Mandy Moore out there on
you make
Hallmark.
a living, man. I mean, they do. They get it's how they do it, and they crank those scripts out, and they go. Like I said, they'll say, "Okay, we need a Christmas dog movie or something," but those movies make money, man, and they're pretty highly rated. So, and she makes a pretty good living doing it. She's
Yeah,
busy.
nope.
Yeah,
Well,
been here
keep doing it.
a year, so.
Big thing. So you've been to over 100 countries. You've done a lot of stuff in your life. What is your most memorable moment post-service?
Oh wow, man. There's been a bunch. I got to work right when I was on the cusp of doing the show business. Brian Sargent had that big security company, and we worked the World Cup. So I spent 3 years in a row in Brazil, over 100 days a year. 2012, 13, and 14 for the World Cup. It was fun, and I've been lucky shooting the movies. I got to go to Colombia to shoot a movie. I got to go to Jordan to do the SEAL show. So I'm still doing the team guy travel. And, it's funny going to like Jordan, not as a combatant or wearing a uniform, and I'm a television director, but it was super interesting. And I had dinner with the King of Jordan when I was over there, because he remembered me from we started that big reef he did in the 90s. My platoon went over there, and this was the same year the Kobar Towers got hit, and we were on the Arg Alpha, and we sunk two boats, and then he just kept it going, and he's got this most incredible reef. So his brother is the head of the Jordanian Film Commission and the Crown Prince, and they were great people, and their kids were like, this is our favorite show. So I go, why don't you be in my episode? And they were paying. The parents are like, no. So I said, oh, it's okay. So I put him in the big party scene, but they let me shoot at the Citadel there, like these Roman ruins, and I got to shoot places that nobody gets to even. I think Coldplay got to shoot a video there or something, but they let me shoot some of my scenes there, and great people. And I told his brother about us, and he goes, oh well, he's going to want to see you. So then next thing I know, I'm like being whisked away to the royal palace, and we're having dinner with the king, and I'm like, I don't, it was crazy, and it was such a great time. So I mean, I've been so lucky, and it just, life continues to amaze me, and great things, stuff like that. So both my kids are doing well. I'm having, life is good.
I mean, I've been following, and I've looked through all your Instagram, just pulling little pieces. So you mentioned being in Brazil for a couple years. Is that where you met Pele?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that with Brian, so we had to bring him in. That was one of the craziest things I've ever had to do. They wanted to build like Hublot watches, the watch company. That's who sponsors. They're the timekeeper for the World Cup, and like FIFA and all that. And they wanted to like bring something back to the community. So Jaca Razin, the alligator, is the worst favela in Rio, and it's really scary, man. I mean, they have like full-blown gunfights in there and stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah, and so we brought Pele in there and Pele is famous, man. That guy, like, I've been around celebrities and stuff, obviously, but Pele's a god. I've never seen that kind of fame, man. And so Brian's like, all right. And we were like running along his car like a Secret Service detail. And there were people, and we got him in there, and we did the dedication and got him out. And he was great. And then I stayed with him for a few more. Like, he met with Rihanna and all these other celebrities, and I was just with him. And he's such a nice guy. And there were such good people. His team was great, and he was one of Hublot's ambassadors, and so that was so cool, man. Because I'm like, wow, I got to spend. And then we went to some of the big games with him, like the finals and stuff, and that was surreal, because I was sitting in the box at the final, and there's like LeBron James and Beckham and all, and I'm sitting there with Pele just going, well, is this really happening? Like, finals for the World Cup. It was pretty cool, man. So
That's nuts. When you do production details, and I mean, I only did the training part of it. We never actually had to protect anybody. But you think about the person that you're protecting, and yeah, they may be somewhat famous or whatnot, but then you get to that kind of stardom when you've got that Pele world vibe. That's a whole nother level, because there's one side it's like, I got to do everything, and we got to be switched on because this is super famous. But the other side is like, I just want to hang out with the dude too. I just want to stare at him for a second. I want to get to know him and buddy up with him.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. And
No,
then you
there were cool moments, you know.
And then you talk about Jordan being on the opposite side of the operational side, like, wow, there is life after service outside of the uniform, being able to be in these countries without always feeling that everything's a threat. So that's that's amazing stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the dive with us into this because, for me personally, this is super informative. I know nothing about film. I've never ever aspired to be in it, but I've always been interested in how it all works. And so congratulations to you, because I do know a lot of guys who have gotten out of either the military or first responders, or they grew up and they wanted to be a director, actor, whatever. And it's 90% of them that I know they consider it failed. And I'm like, well, maybe not failed, but it's hard.
It's a
So
rough, it's like I said, it is a marathon and not a sprint, and it's rough, man. I mean, but I think if you do the right things, like I've talked to actors and other people, like I need an agent. I'm like, you'll get an agent when you do the work, or when the time, they'll come to you. You're not going to go knocking on doors. If you do write a couple good scripts, they will go, hey, we need to sign this guy. Or if you direct some good, and it is a bit of the chicken and the egg, but that stuff comes to you. And it's rough, man. I mean, my first few years, I did anything I could to be on set. I was a background actor on like Modern Family, and I'm getting yelled at by these like second ADs that are, and I'm like, I was a platoon chief in this. Now I'm getting yelled at by some 24-year-old film school failure that doesn't want to be, I'm like, all right, I'll just bite my tongue and keep going. And
you want this, you want this, you want this.
to learn and be on set. And I mean, you got to make those sacrifices. And I think anybody that reinvents themselves or whatever to get out, it takes time. I mean, and I'm 12 years into this career now, and it's been a heck of a ride, but it's not, and I think a lot of guys, I've seen some of the, actors and guys that want, and they think it's going to happen in a year or something. And you have to go, this is what I'm going to do. And if you're doing the right things and you're doing good work, it is a meritocracy. I mean, Hollywood truly is, and there is some luck and other things involved. But if you're writing good scripts, they're going to sell. If you're a decent director, you're going to work. If you're a good actor, you're going to get recognized and put on some shows. And if you can produce and know how the sausage is made, you're going to get involved in production. And people don't, I mean, there's some fun stuff, but for the 5 or 10 minutes you get at the premiere, there's 4 years of incredibly hard work and, go on the edge of bankruptcy and everything else. And if you do it right, when you're done, you're like, that sucked and I'm never doing it again. That was horrible. And then when the pain wears off, you're like, hey, when are we doing that again? Because it's really hard to make a movie, and maybe 10% of things get done.
It's crazy.
It's like going to buds. It's like the odds of getting through buds, and people do, but it's tough to get stuff made. And then like we talked about before we went on the air, it's like being on an op that you're ready to go and you lock and load, and then it gets canked and you're like, oh man, the roller coaster and the letdown of that's a real thing. And you have to put everything you have into stuff, knowing there's about a 10% chance of it happening.
Yeah. Well, I love that you talk about the difference between, it's just not just show business, and that business side is so important to understand too, because it's about sticking with things. Like I've listened to interviews of other actors who are now what you'd consider A-list actors, talking about their start and how grueling it was. And there was no just like, here's your path to success. You got this. You're going to be the golden child to get in. It's, living in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, barely making rent, working 3 jobs, making these calls, all this stuff to get to that point where they maybe get their shot, and they just show up and they give it their everything, and absolute passion and dedication comes into it just to get there and then continue on. And then you got to persevere. So you got to stick with that. So it's awesome, man. I mean, clearly you stick with things. 20 years in the SEAL teams, then you get out and now you're focused on this and you're not going outside this area for a long time. And I cannot wait to see what you continue to create in the future, man. let's you got future projects coming up. What do you want to do with this overall? Like, what would be your ultimate goal here?
Well, I mean, I think, I've talked to some people about starting a film fund or a production company, more than what we're doing now and picking projects. And I've been partnering with some bigger and bigger people. And, one of the scripts I'm writing is for a Oscar-winning director. And I wish I could say who it is, but, and you'll see it hopefully within the next couple years. And, I think I'd like to get involved at the highest level of production, honestly. And, the budgets keep getting bigger and the projects keep getting bigger. So I feel like I've laid the foundation for that. And I'm excited about the next 10 years, in Hollywood and where it's going. So, but again, it is a marathon and things take a long time and you have to, that's one thing my lawyer told me. He's like, look, you came out of SEAL team. I know the, mission satisfaction and all that stuff. He's like, there's two speeds in Hollywood, slow and backwards. You're going to have to learn to recalibrate and it's amazing anything gets done, but it does. And you have to, we're so used to the immediate gratification or boom, 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 boom. And this is like an ultra marathon wrapped in a triathlon wrapped in a, or whatever. And you really have to go, okay, this could take 4 years to get done, but I'm in, let's go, so.
Yeah. Any chance that we're going to see you in front of the camera anytime soon?
Not if I can help it. No, I mean, usually it's just hey, we need one more guy, you're in SAG, go out there. But no, I haven't really pursued that. It just kind of opportunities, targets of opportunity. And, the day rate for SAG for a pretty good budget movie or TV show is pretty good. So when they're like X per day, you're like, all right, I'll do it, because you get, so it's fun. But I like being behind the camera and I like creating and I like working. I love working with actors and, bring stuff to life. And it's super interesting to me, so.
Yeah, man. Well, it's pretty cool to see you do this, man. It's the SEAL teams are comprised of so many different individuals with so many different backgrounds. And it's always so cool. When I joined, I was a skateboarder, right? And when we went to our first platoon trip, we were going to Shaw's to do assaults. And every day after training, like, where's this kid going? And I was a new guy, so I didn't really have any voice of anything. But they're like, when you're off duty or when you're off the job for the day, you do what you do. So I went to the skate park and I was skating. And platoon, they're like, where's this kid going? And so they apparently came out to see, they tracked me down and they found me at a skate park. And of course, the LPO was like, really? You're a glorified team guy and you're at the skate park with a bunch of kids. And I'm like, well, I'm not here for the kids, man. And he's like, well, show me what you got then. So I start shredding and he's like, oh, you actually can skate. And I was like, I hope so. And he's like, well, all right then, as long as you're good at it. And I'm like, sweet. So, and then I had to make every one of them drop in on the half pipe and everyone ate shit. And it was just the most epic thing, just such a different, everybody's so different, man. And it's so cool. But it seems like everybody finds their path post-service and then crushes it, absolutely crushes it. So.
Well, I think the lessons you learn and that people come from all different places in the teams. And I do think that our generation in the teams has been exceptional and guys have done. I mean, if you look at astronauts and, like we have the bandwidth is kind of crazy as to what guys have done. And I love it. And I think if you embrace the discipline and the lessons and the stubbornness of being a team guy, there's not much you can't do. If you find what wakes you up in the morning and you have any skill at it, you're going to do well. So, it's a good thing going through buds and being in the teams and being around a bunch of people that are motivated. And, most team guys you can count on them and you can rely on them and they're, good people. And that's been another departure going into Hollywood. You got to find your people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
That's like that anywhere outside. You know, you get into a small niche,
Yeah.
very, very tight, and then trying to duplicate that and find that somewhere else. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very hard. So you can find that
Well,
elsewhere. That's awesome.
it's amazing though, the life lessons you learn, and it's the basics. I mean, you show up on time, you keep your shit squared away, you do what you say you're gonna do, and stuff you should probably do, but it's like society for some reason doesn't really work like that. And it's amazing how if you just show up and deliver what you say you're gonna deliver and get things done, how much people start relying on you, and it's, I don't know, it's interesting, man. So
Well, I'll tell you what, I always do this to everybody. Once you close this out with your favorite story of service, somebody that you served with that changed the trajectory of your life, you saw something heroic, tell us something unique, something that stands out to you.
oh wow, man. Well, I think probably so. Jason Torrey and I, we did that AFO mission in Iraq, and we had some crazy days over there. Like we almost got blown up at the Assassin's Gate. Like we went to Solder City right after that big hit on the 82nd Airborne, and we were coming back, but we weren't coming back in it was us in our freaking sedan, like our AFO sedan, and we had to go through the regular gate at in the green zone, and we were literally like a couple hundred yards ahead of the explosion at the Assassin's Gate, and it rattled us, and then our radios clacked off, and I remember getting back to buy app, and we always had, and I guess I can say this now, but we had like we had Kodiak and a bottle of Crown Royal in the glove compartment. And I remember us surviving that day in Solder City and then almost getting blown up at the Assassin's Gate and making it back. And we looked at each other going through. I'll never forget that. And we kind of finished that bottle. That giant Kodiak. But him and I just, little things like that. I'll never, but we also laughed a bunch that day and stuff. But we had a couple days like that over there that, and we were talking about that again, that was 21 years ago, but, I think the more you get away from the teams too, and you look back on what you accomplished, even just skydiving or doing, you're like, holy crap, man, we did some pretty cool stuff, or, whatever, just the day to day. But the older I get now, like I used to have like these dreams of, oh, you got to go back through buds, and as I kept getting older, I think, about a few years ago, I can do it. And then finally I was like, nope. You can have it. I'm done, because, that's funny because oh yeah, okay, I'll go back through buds. But then I think I finally have realized that those days are well behind me now. And I don't care how, you can stay in the best shape you want, but I'm so obsolete in the SEAL teams now where I'm so inert and obsolete. I don't even know what the battlefield looks like. I think we had our day in the sun, but it leaves you pretty quick, so.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You don't realize, because I remember, like, I came home. Now it's much like this for most team guys, but I grew up not proving to my parents that I was worth a shit at all. Like I failed all the subjects in school. I really didn't care. I wasn't a bad kid, but just didn't care. Ultimately, I got it in my head, I think it was sophomore to junior year of high school, that I wanted to be a SEAL. And so within a 2-year period, I go from being a complete, fuck up to now being accepted into buds.
Yeah.
And now my parents go from like being so pissed off that we have to go to family, Christmas and that. And their kid is the only one who can't perform and has just got nothing to show or tell the family about. And now it's like, now all they want to do is talk about me going to SEAL training and that. And so I had that little bit of elevation within my family. So I was like super famous within the Parrott family. It was pretty cool.
Awesome.
But then you get to the teams and you just, you're just fighting to get there. And you get there and then you look at your left and your right. And you're like, how could you possibly look at, like at yourself as a super badass? Because you're like, hey, guess what, dude? I'm a Navy SEAL. And you turn to your left and your right and they're like, so am I. okay, cool. You know, like these
Yeah.
are the guys. And it's not
And
till
the
years
first
later.
few years, you're yeah. Taking out the trash and pallet watch. It's so like deflating when you finally get there and they're like, "You're watching this pallet and take the trash out and shut up." You know, like
I wouldn't tell my parents what first year was like. I was just like, it's great. Everything's great. I want to keep the legacy alive that the community is amazing. They're like, I can't even imagine. I'm like going there and got a piss test today, and then I'm going to clean the urinals, and I'm like, this is what a new guy does.
it's deflating because you think you are. You show up, you're like, should I be running across the grinder? And then you're nothing for a few years, and then you finally kind of settle in. So
Yeah, man. Well, I'll tell you what, brother, I can't thank you enough I know that you're a busy guy and giving me your time. And we're going to push this out to everybody. And we're going to talk offline about ways that I might be able to help you because that's what we do, man.
yeah, look forward to it. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, man. I think the last time I saw you was at that MMA fight in up north here in Colorado. We went to the fights.
You mean, was it gunshots that happened or was it stabbings?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
thing ended up being a riot because we were out of there and the cops were all coming, and then it was like, what just happened, man? They were like fighting in the stands and stuff. That fights after the fights. Yeah, that was a little dicey.
Yeah. Then we got locked in. We weren't allowed to leave the stadium, which we didn't care anyway, because we had Drago. You know,
Yeah.
when you have Drago with you, you can do anything.
No, he exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Right on, brother. Well, you have a blessed day, and thanks for your time, my man.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And we'll talk soon.
Great. Thanks.
Frogman Friday.